I was not an officer when I served. I was an enlisted person. Usually, you can get a degree, and then you can apply to be an officer and train for that. And your Uncle CT did. So after he got his degree, he kept going, and so he was in a few more years than I was.
So you were just a a guy that was enlisted?
Mm-hmm.
That was your rank?
No, it's called a specialist, which is an E4. It's the 4th rank.
But that's what your rank means.
Yeah. So I wasn't a high rank. I wasn't in very long. Now your Uncle CT stayed in longer.
Yeah.
And so he applied for, first, after he got his degree, then he could apply to become an officer, which he did.
And he was captain?
And he got to be a captain. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did
by that time, I was already out. Because I didn't want to stay in.
Did Michael?
Michael went in too. He was in the Army.
Was it the same time you guys went?
No, I think he went a couple of years later. And he was an artillery, I want to say.
That's...
With the big weapon, big cannons.
Ew.
Cheryl, you need to ask him. I want to say he was a forward observer. But
Let's see.
he went into the Army too. So we all did a short time. CT longer than me and Michael.
No, he got the degree.
Yeah, once I had my degree, I was like, that was the only reason I went in. Was so that I could, they pay you when you're in.
Yeah.
And they give you money to go to college. So that's what I went in for. After I got my degree, I wasn't interested in staying in. But CT was. He spent, I don't know, not that many, maybe another 2 or 3 years. And, then ultimately he got out too.
So you said something about they asked you to be a pastor.
Mm-hmm. They're called a chaplain.
Chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
Has your military experience affected what you do now? Like your work now? You're a pastor. Has it affected it?
No, not that much. I mean, I think I have an appreciation for a little bit, at least, of the people who are military who are part of the church.
Yeah.
Or like when their families and their sons or daughters go into the military.
Mm-hmm.
I have some understanding of what they're going through or what their kids are going to go through when they go through to get training and stuff. So, I mean, that's good.
It helps.
Yeah, I understand a bit about what that experience is like, and it helps me relate to military people because I understand a little bit about their world and how ranks work and how, a little bit, not a lot, but I know some.
So, being a pastor is a completely different track?
Yeah.
Because when you enlisted, it was to help you out.
Yeah, well, I served as a medic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that has nothing to do, I don't want to say nothing to do, but they're not very directly related.
Yeah.
Being a pastor and being a medic,
But it has...
helping people when they get hurt.
You have a certain understanding.
But I understand, like, when, we just had a family not long ago here at Joyce, Allison Tudor, her daughter, went to the Army, and we blessed her and prayed for her. And she went, and now she's serving on active duty. And I understand a bit about what that's like. And, can empathize a bit with that. And I understand the military a little bit, the language, the culture, a little bit of that. And there's lots of people who are ex-military, who when they were young did stuff in the military. Now they don't. Like Drew's dad, Earl, was in the military for a long time. There's lots of people who served in the armed forces over the years. So it's good to have a connection in that way. I can talk a little bit with them.
Do you, I know, besides your brothers, do you keep contact? Like, did you make any friends that you're still in contact with now?
In the military?
Yeah.
No. There were a couple guys I was really close to, but just over the years, that was, how many years ago is that? Almost 30 years ago. It was a long time ago.
Did you keep contact with him for a short period of time after you?
Yeah. And then, you know, just over years, you know, they move away and I move away, and you just, and there was no, you know, back then there was no internet or Facebook or, you know, Instagram or
Yeah.
even email. I mean, and none of that was there. So, you know, when you don't see people anymore, you just don't talk to them anymore. Nowadays, it's totally different. So, yeah, I kept up with them for a little bit, but then I lost track of them.
Final question. Did your overall military experience have a positive or negative effect on you?
Oh, I think very positive. And again, I think it's because I got the benefit of the training, and you know, it was good training. I think it's very good for young people because there's structure, there's discipline, and you can get promoted. There's also some dumb stuff that goes on in the military. I didn't like that part of it. But I also didn't have to serve in a theater overseas.
Yeah.
In a time of war. I served in a time when we were not at war. And that would have made it, I'm sure it would have made a huge difference to serve during time of war. So, you know, but no, it was overall very positive. I have no complaints.
So what you did, was that helping out with, like, if they were to go into war?
Mm-hmm. That's why we exist, right? We're training because you never know when your country is going to be at war, and you don't want to have no trained people around when you might have to go into war. So you keep people trained all the time. You're training for a war that may or may not ever happen, and it just so happened while I was in.
And didn't.
It didn't. Some of the old guys, when I was brand new, they had been in the military during Vietnam, which was like in the late 60s, early 70s when I was a little kid. You know, they were much older than me. They were ready to retire when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know, so I trained with and met and got to hang out with guys who were at war. But I was just lucky. Me and my brothers, none of us served in a wartime military. But had it been a few years later, it would have been totally different.
So if there was, if something crazy were to happen overseas or something, would they, because I know when you're 18,
you have to register for selective service.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would they pull people from that list?
Yes. I mean, in theory, they could. Now, they haven't had to because they've had enough volunteers, right?
Yeah.
People who choose to go, but we haven't had a draft. Right?
And
Where
how
you make
long?
people. We haven't had a draft in 40 years. It's been a very long time since anyone got drafted into the military. But if it were a total meltdown and we needed everybody, yeah, that's what that list is for. You don't ever want to use it. But if a major meltdown happened, like the Chinese showed up invading in California or something,
Yeah.
right? Which is like unthinkable. Could it happen? In theory, I guess. Well, then you can't wait for people to sign up when they get around to it. In
Yeah.
a scenario like that, you need all hands on deck right now. So,
Well, wouldn't there be a less of not like the opposite of an advantage because they haven't had any training? Why would you want them?
well, you would use the guys you have and women, the men and women who are National Guard like, right, who are trained. There's not enough of them, but there's a good number. So you use them now because they're trained. And while you're using these, you're training new ones. So usually, like in World War II, the first year to a year and a half when we were in World War II, it didn't go well. Because it took a year and a half to recruit the guys, to get them trained, get them sent. It just takes time. But in theory, if we had another world war like that, and we needed everybody, you take the trained people and you'd get a whole bunch of other new ones and you'd get them through training and you send them out. That's how it works. We just haven't had to do that in a very long time.
I never knew anything about your experience.
Huh?
I never knew anything about what you did.
Yeah, well.
So what was that? Was it is that just straight military? Because I know there's like the Navy,
There's the
I don't
Army,
know.
Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps.
You were
Army.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you, Daddy.
You're welcome. That's the only time I ever shot weapons. Was in the military.
You haven't since?
You know, of course, we shot all kinds of stuff. Rifles and pistols and grenades and stuff. They're just dangerous, you know.